Divorce doesn't start in a courtroom. It starts quietly, in conversations that feel different, in tension that doesn't go away, in moments where something shifts, but nothing is said out loud. And during that time, before anything becomes official, some of the most important financial decisions are being made, not always intentionally, sometimes through inaction, sometimes through trust, sometimes through avoiding conflict. And that's where the real risk begins, because by the time divorce is openly discussed, a lot has already happened behind the scenes. Money has moved, accounts have changed, decisions have been made without a full understanding of what they mean long term. So this isn't about panic. It's about awareness, because the earlier you understand these mistakes, the easier they are to avoid. 1. Not knowing the full financial picture. This is where most problems start. Not with loss, but with lack of visibility. In many relationships, one person takes the lead on finances. It becomes routine, comfortable, efficient. Bills get paid, investments are handled, accounts are managed. And over time, the other person stops paying attention, not out of carelessness, but out of trust. But when divorce becomes a possibility, that trust turns into vulnerability. If you don't know what exists, you can't protect it. And that includes more than just income: bank accounts, savings, credit cards, loans, retirement funds, property, business interests. Even small accounts matter, because they add up. And sometimes the biggest issue isn't what's missing. It's what you didn't know was there in the first place. How to avoid it? Start creating your own record. Quietly gather information, account numbers, statements, ownership details. Understand what exists, not just broadly, but specifically, because clarity is the foundation of every financial decision that comes next. 2. Waiting too long to get financial advice. There's a common instinct to wait, to see if things improve, to avoid escalating the situation, to hope that decisions won't have to be made. But waiting has a cost. Because while you're waiting, the financial situation is still changing. Assets can be moved, debt can be created, accounts can be adjusted, and by the time you finally seek advice, you're no longer starting from a neutral position. You're reacting to what already happened. How to avoid it? Getting advice doesn't mean committing to divorce. It means understanding your position. You can speak to a financial advisor or legal expert privately without taking any action. The goal isn't to decide immediately. The goal is to be informed before decisions become urgent, because once things move quickly, it's harder to catch up. 3. Letting emotions drive financial decisions. This is one of the most common and most costly mistakes, because divorce is emotional. There's history, attachment, fear, anger, uncertainty. And in that state, decisions don't always come from logic. They come from feeling. Keeping the house because it feels like stability, giving up assets just to avoid conflict, agreeing to terms just to end the situation faster. These choices feel right in the moment. They reduce stress, they create immediate relief, but they can create long-term imbalance. Because financial decisions don't just affect today, they shape what comes next. How to avoid it? Acknowledge the emotions, but don't let them decide for you. Create space between feeling and action. Take time to evaluate what each decision means in the long run, because peace today shouldn't come at the cost of stability tomorrow. 4. Not protecting personal credit. Credit is often overlooked until it's damaged. In shared financial systems, responsibilities overlap: joint accounts, shared loans, co-signed agreements. But when the relationship becomes unstable, those shared responsibilities can turn into risks: missed payments, increased spending, new debt you didn't agree to. All of it can impact your credit, even if you're not directly involved. And rebuilding credit later is much harder than protecting it now. How to avoid it? Start monitoring your credit regularly. Understand which accounts are in your name. Separate or close joint accounts where possible. Limit exposure to financial decisions you're not controlling, because your credit isn't just a number. It affects your ability to rent, borrow, and rebuild independently. 5. Assuming everything will be split fairly. There's a common belief that divorce automatically results in equal division, that everything will be split 50-50. But reality is more complex. Asset division depends on laws, documentation, ownership, and negotiation. And fair doesn't always mean equal. Some assets are considered marital, others are separate. Some increase in value over time, others carry hidden costs. Without understanding how this works, it's easy to overestimate what you'll receive or underestimate what you're giving up. How to avoid it? Learn how asset division works in your region. Understand the difference between ownership and entitlement. Don't rely on assumptions to protect your interests, because what feels fair emotionally may not reflect reality legally. 6. Overlooking hidden or undervalued assets. Not everything is obvious. Some assets are easy to see: cash, property, income. Others are less visible: retirement accounts, stock options, deferred compensation, business ownership, future earnings tied to investments. These don't always show up clearly, but they can represent significant value. And if they're overlooked or undervalued, they can be lost in the process. How to avoid it? Take a detailed approach. Look beyond immediate income and savings. Ask questions. Review documents. If necessary, involve professionals who can identify and evaluate less visible assets, because the biggest losses often come from what wasn't fully understood. 7. Prioritizing short-term comfort over long-term stability. In difficult situations, immediate comfort feels important: stability, familiarity, quick resolution, but short-term comfort can create long-term pressure. Keeping a house that's expensive to maintain, accepting a smaller settlement to avoid conflict, making decisions based on what feels easier now rather than what works later. These choices can limit future options. How to avoid it? Shift the focus forward. Think beyond the current moment. Ask whether a decision will still make sense years from now. Because financial stability isn't about how things feel today, it's about what you can sustain over time. 8. Not understanding tax implications. Money isn't just about numbers, it's about what you actually keep. Different assets are taxed differently. Selling property, transferring investments, receiving support payments, all of these can change once taxes are applied. A settlement that looks equal on paper can be very different in reality. How to avoid it? Understand the tax impact before agreeing to anything. Consult someone who can break it down clearly. Focus on net value, not just surface value. Because what matters isn't what you receive, it's what remains after everything is accounted for. 9. Delaying financial independence. Financial independence isn't something you build overnight, and waiting until after divorce to start makes everything harder. Relying entirely on a partner for income, decisions, or access creates a gap. A gap in knowledge, a gap in control, a gap in confidence, and closing that gap under pressure is difficult. How to avoid it? Start early. Open accounts in your own name. Understand how money flows. Learn how decisions are made, because independence isn't about separation. It's about being prepared no matter what happens. 10. Avoiding reality until it's too late. This is the most difficult one, because it's not about money, it's about awareness. Sometimes the signs are there. Things feel different, uncertain, unstable, but instead of preparing, people avoid it. They hope it will improve. They delay action. They convince themselves it's temporary, and by the time things become clear, they're already behind. How to avoid it? You don't have to make immediate decisions, but you do need to stay aware. Preparation isn't the same as commitment. It's simply being ready for whatever direction things take. This isn't about expecting the worst, it's about being prepared for it. Because when you understand your financial position, you don't just protect your money, you protect your ability to move forward on your own terms. If you want more clear, practical insights like this, focused on awareness, independence, and making smarter decisions before they become urgent, make sure you subscribe, because the decisions you make before the moment arrives are the ones that shape everything after.